thank you very much for assembling today on this auspicious occasion of Sthapanam, Bhagavatam Sthapanam in Parixit and Malika's house. So I think most of you will remember we were always also there at the time of the gifting of the Bhagavatam.
Just a few weeks. We had different ceremony that time.
Different ceremony, equally ecstatic.
Equally ecstatic.
So we'll speak a few minutes about the glories of Bhagavatam, the importance of having Bhagavatam in one's house. After that, we'll have an arti of Bhagavatam and prasad after that. So the Srimad Bhagavatam, it occupies a very, very important place in the Vaishnava Sampradaya, and especially in the current age of Kali, where for the most part most of the Vedic scriptures are actually lost. So over time, because of the influence of the age of Kali, different reasons, the Vedas have been steadily diminishing. And Jiva Goswami in his Sandarbha, Tattva Sandarbha, he determines that, this was about 500 years ago, he determines that at this point at that point, there were only 6% of the Vedas that was still existing. 94% of the Vedas were actually lost. And the Vedas in themselves, they built a very interconnected kind of a pathway for one to reach the Vedanta. So the Vedanta is, Vedanta means Ant. So where does the Vedas end? What is the crux of the Vedas? And the Vedas build a very elaborate kind of a series of paths that people can engage at the level they are to ultimately reach what the goal of the Vedas are, which is pure devotional service, which is Krishna Bhakti. But because of different circumstances, they are not there now. And Jiva Goswami then makes this proposition that the conclusion is as good as the substance if the conclusion is complete in itself. And the Bhagavatam, it represents the conclusion of the Vedas. So somewhere at the end of Dwapar Yuga, at the beginning of Kali Yuga, Srila Vyasadeva, he was able to understand that in the coming ages people will either not have the lifespan or the intellect to read the Vedas. So he summarized the Vedas in the Vedanta Sutras. So the essence of the Vedas were established by Srila Vyasadeva, who is the compiler of the Vedas, in the Vedanta Sutras. But then he himself realized, with the help of his guru, Narad Muni, that even the Vedanta Sutras is difficult for somebody to understand. So then he compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Srimad Bhagavatam is a natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutras. So just like an expert teacher or a professor may summarize a rather complex topic in principles and then illustrate those principles by examples. So that's what Srila Vyasadeva did, that he summarized the Vedas into the Vedantas, and then he illustrated the Vedantas in the Bhagavatam. So that makes Bhagavatam potent in several ways, that it captures the essence of the Vedas, and because it is easily understood, it is also accessible to the people in the current day and age. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he appeared 550 years ago, he strongly promoted the systematic study of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and he did that mostly by example. That he was himself involved in reciting the verses of the Bhagavatam, and of course Mahaprabhu, he knew the Bhagavatam completely, but yet he would spend hours and hours having his associates recite the various verses in the Bhagavatam, and he established this tradition of systematic study of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And fortunately for us, around 50 years ago, Srila Prabhupada, he carried on the tradition for our benefit. That he wrote very, very comprehensive commentaries on the Bhagavatam in English, which has now been translated in almost 60 languages, so that the Bhagavatam is easily accessible to anybody and everybody. So it's very auspicious to have Bhagavatam in your house, and in the Skanda Puran, the Padma Puran, there are several verses that glorify that person who has a Bhagavatam in their house. And even more auspicious is to worship the Bhagavatam by one's intelligence. So in the Skanda Puran it said that if one reads one chapter of the Bhagavatam, if one cannot read one chapter, if one reads one verse of the Bhagavatam every day, or even half a verse of the Bhagavatam every day, then he attracts the attention of Krishna. Because Krishna is himself embodied in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So I wanted to share with you a small passage from Padma Puran. It's called the Srimad Bhagavatam Mahatmya. So it illustrates the potency and the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. And for some of you who have attended Bhagavad Saptahs, I guess mostly done in India, then this is also how they typically begin the Bhagavad Saptah. They begin with one session of the Bhagavad Mahatmya. So the Bhagavad Mahatmya starts with Narad Muni traveling, and as he is traveling, he notices on the banks of the river Ganges, there's a very young woman, very, very pretty, very effulgent, surrounded by so many equally effulgent young women, ladies who are serving her, but she's lamenting and she's crying, and by her side there are two men who are lying almost as if dead, and at different points she's trying to revive them, and then she again goes to crying and lamenting, and everybody around her is trying to console her. So Narad Muni, being curious, he approaches this young woman, and then he asks her, what's the reason? Why are you lamenting in such a way? And who are these two old men who are lying as if they are dead? So then the lady answers that I am the personification of Bhakti. And these two men that are lying are my sons. And they are the personification of Gyan and Vairagya. And all these people that you see surrounding around me, they are the personification of the various holy tirthas. So then she says that over time, I was born, and born in the sense Bhakti is eternal, but she says I appeared in the southern part of India. And I was nurtured in the southwestern part of India. When I went further up north, I was glorified. But then, because of the influence of the age of Kali, I was my limbs were attacked and broken, and so was the same treatment done to my 2 sons. So we traveled away from there and we reached the northern part of India. And when we reached Vrindavan, so I became completely revived there. But my 2 sons, they are still lying almost like dead. So the Acharyas gave commentary on this, stating that the bhakti movement, so to speak, was revived in the southern part of India by the great Vaishnava Acharyas like Srimad Acharya. And then from there, bhakti went to the southwestern part of India, where it was given structure, the rituals, the practices by Vaishnavas like Srimad Acharya in Udupi, in Karnataka. And then she traveled up north, and in the state of Maharashtra, by sages like Sage Tukaram, she was glorified. But beginning from the state of Gujarat, where people, so this is what it's not me saying, it's what the Acharyas say, so Dhaval is not here, so it's okay. So beginning from the state of Gujarat, where people are very materialistic, the process of bhakti became subjugated to material desires. So she said that people started using me for material benefits. So when I traveled away from there and I reached the city of Vrindavan, by the influence of Krishna and his pastimes, bhakti was revived. Because when Krishna came, he, by his own influence, he preached pure devotional service. But because of the influence of the age of Kali, Jnana and Vairagya, they were still in a very decrepit state. So in the Bhagavatam, it is mentioned that the 2 outcomes, when bhakti comes, 2 things come after that. That's why bhakti is called the mother. One is jnana and one is vairagya. So there's a verse in first canto, 2nd chapter. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janatyashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chata Ahitati. So Vasudeve Bhagavati, that one who worships Vasudeva, Krishna, Bhakti Yoga Prayojita, to the process of Bhakti Yoga. Prayojita means what happens after that. Janatyashu Vairagyam. So what takes birth is Vairagya, Jnanam cha tad ahitukam, and causeless knowledge. So knowledge not for mental speculation, knowledge not for defeating scholars, but knowledge to understand sambandha, understand the relationship. So even though bhakti on its own became nourished, but because there was no attraction to Jnana and Vairagya, the personification of these 2 were in a very decrepit state. So Narad Muni, he becomes, seeing the plight of Bhakti Devi, he becomes very emotional. And he says that I give you this promise that not only you, but your sons will be nourished and flourish. Both will happen to them. And so Bhakti Devi becomes very happy. So she says this statement, which is actually very dear to the followers of Prabhupada. She says that she said, Idam sthanam parityajay videsha gamyate maya. So she says that to Narad Muni, that idam sthanam parityajay, that over time I know that I will I will travel out from this place. From this place, sthanam pratyaja. I will travel. And where will I travel? Idam sthanam pratyaja. Idam sthanam pratyaja. Idam sthanam parityaje videsha gamyate, and I will go to foreign lands. So when the commentator was commenting on it, so they say that gamyate, it indicates a passive tense of the verb, which means that I will be carried to the, as opposed to I will go to foreign lands, I will be carried to foreign lands. And this was something that Srila Prabhupada, actually, the prophecy, he made it come true. That what was spoken in Padma Puran by Bhakti Devi actually happened. And Prabhupada, of course, carried the mercy that was given to him by his Guru Maharaj and the Sampradaya, that Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhakti Shodhar Babaji. So they all created the environment. So Prabhupada would say that all I did was take ahead whatever my spiritual masters had already set in motion. So Narad Muni, he left that place and he started traveling everywhere, asking people who he met this question, that how can we revive bhakti, how can we revive jnana and vairagya everywhere? And different people would give different answers, to the extent that Narad Muni, he himself started getting confused, that what is the right way? Some would say it's not possible, some would say that this is the way that is possible. So finally Narad Muni, he reached Badrika Ashram, and there amongst the congregation of the great sages, he also started asking these questions. So he started praying very, very intensely to get some enlightenment on this. And in answer to his prayers, the 4 Kumars appeared. So the 4 Kumars are the firstborn sons of Brahma. And they are lifelong celibates, Ran says, and they're actually the spiritual masters of Narad Muni. So Narad Muni went and he placed this same question before them. So then the 4 Kumars said that it's very strange that you're asking this question when sometimes ago this very question was asked of you, and then you actually were able to give the answer to that. So Narad Muni says, I may have lost my memory, but when did this happen? So they say that sometimes ago, and this pastime is reported in the Bhagavatam, when Srila Vyasadeva, he had compiled the Vedas, he was feeling a lot of dissatisfaction, even though he had done something that was his Yug Dharma, which was compiling of the Vedas. And being a very exalted soul, he knew that if his heart is not at peace, he has not done something to serve Krishna. So he kept trying to think, and at that time Narad Muni appears. So then he asks Narad Muni that why am I feeling this dissatisfaction? I've been true to my vows, I have done all the rituals that I'm supposed to do, I am the Vyas for this Yuga, I have compiled the Vedas, but yet I'm feeling this dissatisfaction. So at that time, Narad Muni says that while you have done all that, you have not directly glorified Krishna. So based on that instruction, Srila Vyasadeva, he compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam. So the 4 Kumars, then they say that you yourself instructed Narad Muni that what needs to be done in this current age of Kali. So that is the solution that will not only solve the problem, but will make this age glorious. Because when Narad Muni was having the conversation with Bhakti Devi, one of the questions that Bhakti Devi had placed before him was that when Parixit Maharaj, when he was traveling around his kingdom, he saw the personality of Kali. And the personality of Kali was trying to kill a bull over there. But Parixit Maharaj did not kill him. Why didn't you not kill him? Because of the influence of this personality, my sons are in this condition. And the Narad answers that the reason Parixit Maharaj did not kill Kali is because for all the faults, Kali has one big advantage. And this comes later in the Bhagavatam, actually the 12th canto, where Sukadeva Goswami himself says that Kalera dosh nidhe raja, that this age of Kali is full of dosh. Astiya eka mahaguna, that it has one big advantage. Kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sang param bhaji. That simply by Krishna Kirtan, by chanting Krishna's name, one mukta sang, one will free themselves from all the contaminations in the age of Kali and param bhaji, and then reach the highest destination, which is going back to Krishna Lok. So Parixit Maharaj, being an exalted Vaishnava, he wanted to give this opportunity to the people in the age of Kali. So the four Kumars, after having reminded Narad Muni, so Narad Muni begs them, saying that you've set me on the right path, but what I spoke to Srila Vyasadeva was an essence of the Bhagavatam. So Narad Muni had spoken 4 verses, which is called the Chatushloki Bhagavat, which is the essence of the Bhagavatam. And Srila Vyasadeva had expanded it into 18,000 verses. So Narad Muni says that if you can recite the Bhagavatam in its entirety for the benefit of the people, then it will start this process of systematically studying the Srimad Bhagavatam. So the 4 Kumars, they agreed, and they in a place close to Haridwar, they established their Vyasasthan over there, and they actually they read the entire Bhagavatam for 7 days over there. So when they were reading the Bhagavatam, then everybody came. The Devas came, the sages came, the exalted rishis came, and they all partaked of the Bhagavatam. And the people sitting over there, they themselves then became the disciplic succession, the sampradaya, that through which the Bhagavatam was disseminated. So after the recitation of the Bhagavatam, and in terms of the Falstuti, in terms of what's the advantage of the study of the Bhagavatam, the 4 Kumars, they illustrated with a pastime. And that's how the Purans generally work. They state a principle and they illustrate with a pastime, so that one understands both the philosophy as well as the application and the advantage of it. So this is recorded in Bhagavatam Mahatmya. So the 4 Kumars, they share that once upon a time, on the banks of the river Tungabhadra, there was a very prosperous city. And in the city over there, there was a Brahman by the name of Atmadev. The Brahman was a very pious Brahman. He was expert in the Vedas, but he was also miserly. And even though he was rich, he would go around begging from different people. He was married to a very charming, beautiful wife by the name of Dundhuli. So his wife, even though she was very pleasant to look at, very expert at household affairs, but she had this problem that she was very much interested in gossiping, in criticizing others. She was lazy by nature, And the other problem that the Brahman had, that he didn't have a child. And because of that, he was always in anxiety. So while we go through the pastime, I'll also share with you a little bit about the Vaishnav's commentary on it. So the Vaishnavas say that when the four Kumars were talking about this, while this is a factual pastime, it is also metaphorical. So Tungabhadra Tungabhadra means one that is auspicious to the people. Bhadra means auspicious. Tungabhadra means one that is auspicious to people. So Tungabhadra represents the material world. And Atmadev, he represents the spirit soul. So the spirit soul in the material world, by nature the spirit soul is pious. That's the nature of the soul. But because it comes in contact with so many material things, it becomes kripan. Kripan means miserly. Where does it become miserly? Mostly in spiritual endeavors. So even though so in the Chaitanya Charitamrita there is this pastime of a son being told that your father is very rich and he has left a lot of wealth for you, but you just don't know about it. And so the son, he took it literally and he started digging up, looking for the wealth. But actually it was again a metaphor that the father is Krishna and he has left you the wealth which is, he has left the spiritual world open for you. So nature of the soul is that by nature it is pure, but because of its association with so much of contamination, it becomes kripan. It becomes kripan means miserly. It becomes miserly, especially when it comes to spiritual activities. And we can relate to that in our own lives. That it's very easy for us to make times for activities that are enjoyable to our senses, but not so much that is nourishing to our soul. That's the nature of Kripan. So his wife, Dundhuli. So Dundhuli means Dhund is like mist, fog, right? So when there is fog, then it's not that you cannot see, but everything is blurred. You can see outlines, but it's not very clear. So Dundhuli represents intelligence. So conditioned intelligence is, so a person at the end of the day, they know, because the soul knows. They know that I have taken birth, so I'll die. They know that the importance of morality. They know that what's the importance of making spiritual advancement. But because the intelligence is smeared in this way, there's lack of focus. Avesatmika. The mind is constantly spread. So back to the pastime. So Atmadev, because he didn't have a child, he was very, very morose. And once he became so sad that he decided to go to the forest and give up his life. So he went deep into the forest, and there he was crying and lamenting, and he attracted the attention of a sadhu over there. And the sadhu says, why are you lamenting like this? It's a nice pristine forest, good place for you to meditate, good place for you to do japa. What is distressing you? So the Brahman then he lets out his heart, saying that gives his own introduction and says, I don't have a son. And without a son, who's going to offer me oblations after I die? What about my forefathers? They will all fall because there's no son to offer oblations. So the sadhu says that, and because the sadhu was a Mahapurush, he says, looking at you, I can assure you that you won't have a son. Not only in this life, but in 7 lives, you're not going to have a son. So Atmadev became completely morose, and he got hold of the sadhu's feet, and he said, you have to, somehow or else, You have to, because I know what I'm suffering is because of my own karma, you have to relieve me of the reactions of whatever sinful activities that I have done. And he says, I know you can do it because you're a Mahapurush. You can see my future, you can see my past, so you can take away the sinful reactions. So the sadhu tries to reason with him. So he gives him scriptural examples. Look at the example of Maharaj Chitraketu. He did the same thing. He had a son, but the son died, and he was more bewildered because of that. So the Atmadev, he kept insisting, and finally the sadhu says, okay. So he gave him a mango, and he says, take it, and he gives the process. Ask your wife for 1 year to eat only once in a day, perform austerities, be completely celibate, and after that eat the mango and she'll have a son. So the sadhu represents spiritual master. So when the spiritual master is approached, the inclination of the spiritual master is to guide the disciple to making spiritual progress. But most of the people, they approach the spiritual master for help in their material mysteries. So the spiritual master might say, there's a bigger purpose in life. Like Srila Prabhupada, once he was traveling and somebody came to Prabhupada and said, Swamiji, give me your blessings. And Prabhupada said that, may you become a sannyasi. And then he said, no, I don't want that blessing. I have to go. So he went away. Yeah. And then Prabhupada started laughing. He said, when people want my blessings, then they don't really want what is beneficial to them. They want what they they want what they want. They don't want what they need. There's a difference between the two. So but ultimately, because the spiritual master is also affectionate, they also give the disciple something so that they can still sustain themselves. So the process of cultivating somebody into spirituality, it's a very delicate process. So if a person is too materially engrossed, it's very difficult for the person to look at it from a spiritual perspective. So many times the spiritual masters will give benedictions that help the person materially, but also at the same time they will develop faith in the Guru. So when the Guru says some instructions that are more spiritual, they also take to those instructions. That's why even in the Puranas we see many times exalted devotees, they give, so to speak, material benedictions, but they lead to one's spiritual progress. So Atmadev was very happy. So he took the mango, he went to his wife, gave her the mango, and said that you eat the mango and we'll have a son. So Dhunduli was very upset. And so she went to her friends that she used to gossip with, and she says that so far I was happy that by nature's own course I was not having a child. Now if I have a child, then I'll become fat. And on top of that, so it's a kind of funny description she gives. That she says that the child will come, he will pass stool at all times. I'll have to clean the child's stool. And when the child is in my stomach, he'll kick my abdomen. I'll have to suffer a lot of pain because of that. So various reasons she gives, and she throws the mango. She gives it to the cow to eat. But she's also a little concerned that her husband will get suspicious that what happened. So it so happened that Dhunduli had a sister, and she was pregnant at the time. So her sister came and said, don't worry about it, that I'm expecting a child, and if you give my husband some good remuneration, some good money, he will agree to take my child and give it to you. So the sister of Dhunduli, her name is not given, but the sister of Dhunduli represents the mind. So when the intelligence is bewildered, then the mind comes and takes control of it. Because what is the purpose of mind? The mind is the place where the senses rest. So the intelligence says, what should I do, what should I do? The mind will come and say that eat, drink and be merry. That is the purpose of life. That sometimes I have a discussion with people and they say that if Krishna did not want us to enjoy, then why did he give us these senses to enjoy? Why did he give us the desires to enjoy? Everything is coming from Krishna. So where is all that coming from? That is the mind that is supporting the intelligence. So in due course of time, the sister, she had a son. And the husband, she took the son and gave it to Dunduli, who gave it to her husband, presenting the son as her own child. So the husband, Atmadev, was very happy. He gave, even though he was miserly at that time, he gave a lot of money in charity. He held a feast there. And the child's name was Dundukari. So Dundukari means, Dundukari represents us, the conditioned soul. And so Kari means, so like there's the word Madhukari, right? Madhukari means one who sustains oneself by begging at different places. Dundukari is one who sustains oneself by spreading illusion to different people. So it also happened that the mango that was thrown by Dunduli, the cow that ate the mango also gave birth to a son. And Atmadev was very happy, saying that the benediction, because Atmadev had this curse, so to speak, that nothing in his house would ever produce a progeny. If he would sow a seed, no trees would come. Even if a tree came, no fruits would come. Any animals that he would get, the animals would become barren. So Atmadev was very happy that because of the benediction of the Guru, my cow has actually given birth to a human. And that son he named as Gokarna. So he had ears like a cow, so he was called Gokarna. And as the children grew up, Dundukari, he turned out to be a really evil person. He performed all kinds of illicit activities. He would steal, he would rob, he would kill people. He had 5 prostitutes that he kept with him, and each of the prostitutes was very demanding. Each one of them would ask for different things, and in order to please them, he would go and harass his father. So once he got very upset at his father, that he beat his father up, saying that you have all this wealth that you're sitting on, and I'm your only son, you should give it to me. So the father became completely heartbroken. That so much of prayers that I did to get my son, and today my son has come and his own father he has beaten. So he went to Gokarna and said, what should I do? And so Gokarna said, so Gokarna preached to him, saying that these relationships that are predicated on give and take, they will always have this tenuous balance. That you always feel that you're given more and taken less, and the other person will always feel the same way. So as long as the relationships are material, there will always be this tension. Everybody in the material world thinks that they are the victim. Everybody in the material world thinks that they're given more and they have gotten less. So then he said, what should I do? He says, you feel that you're at this age that you should give up your grahastha life and you go and focus on your bhajan. So Atmadev, so Gokarna represents a devotee, one who is connected to the Vedas, one who is connected to Krishna. So under the influence of Gokarna, Atmadev, he left his house, he went to the jungle and he performed his bhajan, and ultimately he gave up his body and went back to Godhead. So with the father gone, now Dundukari, he started stealing money. He spent all the wealth of his father. So the 5 prostitutes that he kept represent the 5 senses that the jiva has. So in order to satisfy these 5 senses, the jiva does so many things that it beats up its own soul. Atmadev was the soul. So the nature of the soul is pristine. The nature of the soul is to be Jivere Swarup Hoy, Krishna Nitya Das. That's the nature of the soul. But in order to satisfy these 5 prostitutes, these 5 senses, the jiva beats up the soul, saying, "You be quiet, and I have other things to do." It takes shelter of Dunduli. It takes shelter of its contaminated intelligence. It takes shelter of the sister of Dunduli, mind, which is where the senses are congregating. And in this way it tries to very hard to enjoy over and over again. So when all the atrocities that her son was doing on her became too much, one day Dunduli, she jumped into a well and she also gave up her life. So with the mother gone, which means with intelligence lost, now Dundukari, he just became out of control. He started associating with bandits, he roamed far and wide stealing. So one day his 5 prostitutes, they put a lot of demand on him, that we need this, we need that. And because he was a slave to them, he went, and for many days he went and he looted many people and he got a lot of wealth. So in fact he got so much wealth that the prostitutes got scared, saying that he has committed so many crimes, no doubt the king's soldiers will come and will arrest him. And when they arrest him, they will also arrest us, because we are living with them. So that night, when Dundukari was sleeping, they got a strong rope and they tied it around his neck, and they started like as a noose, they started tightening it. But they tried and tried and tried, but they still could not kill Dundukari. So then one of them had an idea, so they went outside and from the stove, they took out burning coal and they put it in the mouth of Dundukari, and they forcibly closed the mouth and they held it till the point that he died. So when he died, they threw his body in a distant place, and to everybody else they said that he is gone to a foreign land, and they disappeared themselves. So that's the nature of the senses. That while you can satisfy the senses, they will be with you. While you cannot satisfy the senses, they become the cause of your death. So the same senses that you, all your life, you are working hard to satisfy, and you're dedicating every moment that let me get a better this, let me get a better place to sleep, better food to eat, better drinks to have. That when the body becomes weak, the same senses become actually the cause of pain and death. And they might kill you slowly. So when they had the noose, that was the slow death that the senses cause. Just by the fact that you have senses, you start dying, and ultimately death comes in terms of the final moment. So when Dundukari died, because of his sinful life, he became a ghost. And being a ghost, he was very much agitated. Because ghosts, they have a subtle body, but they have all the desires. They have a thirst to drink, but they cannot drink water. They have hunger, but they cannot eat. They are always agitated. So, in the meantime, Gokarna, he was on pilgrimage. When he heard that his brother had died, as being the only male member, he performed shraddh for them. in Gaya, and then he went to the other holy places. And knowing that his brother was sinful, he performed several pious activities to for the departed soul of his brother, and then he came back to Tungabhadra. So when he came back, and he went and he was sleeping in his hut, at night he saw a strange creature. And the creature would sometimes appear like a sheep, and sometimes like an elephant, sometimes like fire, sometimes like a Rakshas. So Gokarna asked him that, who are you? And why are you so agitated? So so this was of course the ghost of his brother, and he said that ever since I've had this ghostly form, I'm in constant pain. Every moment is like lifetimes of pain condensed in one moment. So somehow you have to help me out of this. So Gokarna, being a devotee, he said that, okay, for your benefit, I will recite the Srimad Bhagavatam. So he established his Vyasthan for the Bhagavatam, and when the news spread, then many people from the neighborhood came to attend the Bhagavat, and for 7 days, Gokarna, he recited the Bhagavatam. So at that time, Dhundukari, because he was so it is said in the human form of life, we have a stable body but an unstable mind. In the ghostly form of body, the mind and body are both unstable, because the body is subtle, it's not able to stay in a place. So in order to stay in a place to hear the Bhagavatam, Dhundukari, he entered into a bamboo stick that had 7 knots in it. And at the end of every day of the Bhagavatam, one of the knots would open. So the acharyas also say that these are the 7 knots that tie the soul to the material world, the 5 senses, and the 5 gross and the 2 subtle senses, mind and intelligence. Also, it's a different interpretation. There's 7 kind of coverings there. So at the end of the 7th day, the final knot, it opened, and in the vision of everybody, a very effulgent chariot came, on which the Vishnu Dutas were there. And Dhundukari, he had a 4-armed form, and he was wearing tulsi, he was wearing very costly garments, he was effulgent, he was happy and peaceful, and he mounted on the chariot, and he went away. So while they were going away, Gokarna, he said, to the Vishnu Dutas, he said, I have a question for you. Vishnu Dutta said, what question? He said, I recited the Bhagavatam. All these people were sitting and listening to the Bhagavatam. How come only he gets to go back to the spiritual world? Why not us? So the Vishnu Dutta said that because he heard it with that urgency that his life depended on it. Everybody was hearing it out of piety. But for Dhundukari, because he was experiencing the darkest side of material existence, the need for him to escape that was very real. So every word that you said, he meditated on that. So it is said in Bhagavad Saptah, the speaker should speak for 9 hours, take a 1 hour break, you should speak for 9 hours, and in the remaining time, the audience, they should meditate on what was spoken in the remaining 16 hours. Ideally speaking, the people who are hearing Bhagavatam should not sleep for 7 days. It does not happen really, but the idea is they should sleep as less as possible, they should eat as less as possible. So encouraged by the answer, Gokarna, in the next month, he once again did the Bhagavad Saptah, and this time he and everybody else, they heard with full concentration. And at the end of the 7th day, all of them went back to Godhead. So Sanat Goswami, he's reciting this pastime to Narad Muni and the people who are sitting there, and he gives this benediction that in any house where there is Bhagavatam, Krishna will personally reside over there. In any house where the husband and the wife, they read the Bhagavatam together, there will be complete harmony. I guess the implicit part of it is that there is disharmony between husband and wife. So that's why there is this benediction that if the husband and the wife, they read the Bhagavatam together, there will be complete harmony in there. And it's also true that when in the limited experience that we have, we've seen that when couples, they make spiritual progress together, then it strengthens their bond in all respects. The sense of respect for one another, the relationship with one another, the children come close to each other. So the Bhagavatam was spoken in the month of Bhadra, in the Shukla Paksh, in the bright fortnight, on Navami, on the ninth day. And in the 12th canto of the Bhagavatam, one of the benedictions is that if one gives a Bhagavatam on this day, on Bhadra, in the Shukla Paksha, on the 9th day, on a golden throne, then there is benefit to the person who gives, and there is benefit obviously to the person who takes it. That is one of the things that we do is that whenever there is an opportunity, as a Namhat, we give Bhagavatam as a gift, so that as a Namhat, we become strong spiritually, because we are also a family. And as a family, when we give somebody, then everybody gets the benefit out of it. So there's obviously many different options that we could exercise, but we deliberately went this path because this is for our own spiritual nourishment. That the stronger our spiritual family is, then the more we can support each other. And the person who's getting it also, they have the ultimate benefit of receiving Krishna in their house. So I'll stop here and see if there's any questions or comments. Yes, Prabhu.
That Dundukari, that is the conditioned soul. So what is the ghostly form when he is in the?
I'm just curious, when they do the Bhagavatam and India, how do they divide it? Because how do they divide the 18 verses? Do they actually cover everything?
They don't. I think I attended only 2 Bhagavatas. And that's why Prabhupada was a little bit careful about advising people to attend Bhagavatas, because a lot of them just jump to the 10th canto. So, and Prabhupada was very particular that you should not read the 10th canto until you have read 1st, 2nd, 3rd. Because you cannot, like when you go to the temple and you take darshan of the deity, the recommended way is that you start from the lotus feet and then work your way up. And the 10th canto represents the face of Krishna. So the first 2 cantos represent the lotus feet. So the understanding is that one goes steadily up there. One Bhagavata Sapta that we attended in Vrindavan, there he did start, if I remember, he did start from the 1st canto onwards. But they also want to, it's something of a business also, and they also want to keep the audience interested, because the first, at least the first 3 cantos are very, very philosophical. So they're trying to either not cover it or do it very, very quickly, and they try to focus more on the pastimes. They talk about the pastime of Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruv Maharaj, Narad Munis, and then they jump to the 10th canto there. So that's why Prabhupada was not very much in favor of Bhagavad Sapta in that mode. In the Skand Puran, it's mentioned that Bhagavatam can be studied in 4 ways. people who do the Bhagavad Sapta, it's studying Bhagavatam in the mode of passion. That there is a week, and in the week they will sit morning to evening, study it, and then not look at the Bhagavatam again. People who get a Bhagavatam and keep it in the house, either don't study it or study it just like that once in a while, it's in the mode of ignorance. Then one who studies the Bhagavatam regularly, it's in the mode of goodness. And then one who studies the Bhagavatam while meditating on the verses, trying to incorporate it into their own lives, it's in the mode of Sudarshatva, so the mode of pure goodness. So when Prabhupada wrote the Bhagavatam, then he explained the purports. In the purports, he explained the inner meaning of the verses that can help us meditate on the verse. So in terms of reading the Bhagavatam, everybody has their own way that they engage with the Bhagavatam. What works for me was still working on, but at least the first time when I read the Bhagavatam, I read the verses. I just read the verses, all the 18,000 verses. So first time I read it, I've done it 3 times now. So first time I did it was in Kartik. So it was my Kartik vow. So in 1 month, I read the verses. So it's 600 verses a day. Takes about 3 hours. But if you read 1 hour a day, in 3 months you will complete the Bhagavatam, just reading the verses. After you read the verses, then you get the lay of the land, you get the God, then read the verses and the purport, verses and the purport. And Prabhupada said that read a chapter a month. So there are 335 chapters in the Bhagavatam. So it will take. I'm sorry, we didn't say read for chapter a month, but you read a chapter a day. So there are 335 chapters. So it takes a year to read the Bhagavatam. But engaging with the Bhagavatam is very much like making friends with the person. So it depends on your personality, it depends on the rasa. Some people are weekend warriors, they read a lot on the weekends. Some people read very regularly. But the important thing is that if you have a friend, you're trying to develop a relationship with the person, then very important to engage with the person. Like the person is in your house, you put the person in a room and close the door, you'll never be able to. The person may be in your house for millions of years, never be able to develop a relationship. So the engagement is, even if it's in the mode of passion, that even if you do 1 week, even if it's in the mode of ignorance, that you do haphazard, but Bhagavatam is self-purifying.
It's recommended to hear it from an exalted book, right? So if I read a verse every day with my limited knowledge, would it still give benefit?
But because you're hearing from Srila Prabhupada. Right? The purpose are all Prabhupada speaking to each one of us. Right? So reading the verse by verse, that's something that worked for me. It works for me in all the books. Like Bhagavad Gita also, I read verse by verse. Kind of gives me the sense, but whatever works, Some of the verses are very difficult to understand. So you have to, at least in my case, I said, okay, I know I can't understand it, but I moved to the next verse. Later on, when I came back to it and when I read the purpose, then it made more sense. But like I said, it's there are no strong rules for relationships. Whatever works best, engage in that way. Engagement is the most important aspect of it. Okay.
Verse means just the translation. Only translation.
Just the translation.
Yes.
Shlokas, when you're reading the purport, then it's good to read the shlokas at the time. And again, I want to caution, this is not something that Prabhupada said or whatever. This worked for me. So I read the English right through, and if you do it in Kartik, it happens. You have to put 3 hours, but it happens. Believe it or not, it happens that I couldn't wait to come back home to read the Bhagavatam, because it's so captivating, part of it. And so just read the English over, and later on the Sanskrit. And when you do the purpose, then many times you want to read the word by word also. The Prabhupada said this means that. So then you can do it in a more absorbed way.
In like Glories, the Bhagavatam, whatever I heard, they should be performed that particular month, particular week, and the Bhagavatam was in the form of song, like Govinda, 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 whatever Chimapuranda, like similar, and it will be finished by 7 days, and in between the reciter, he used to comment on like his own understanding and relations and the good places.
Right.
That's more like a part, like the Ramayana part.
Yeah, maybe.
Akhand Ramayana part.
This is a Bhagavad Saptaha, but Prabhupada gave the purport and translation to understand it.
Yeah, because some verses you can understand, some verses you can't, and requires one to get guided.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're,
Proper.
yeah, especially the earlier cantos, very, because they also tend to speak in metaphors. So the earlier cantos, it's difficult to just read the Sanskrit. Yeah, of course, I can't understand, but even just reading the English is difficult to understand what is meant. And then, of course, the purpose revealed. Not only what the meaning is, but what the context is, how it's applicable in our life. So Prabhupada, he would sleep for only 2-3 hours a day. He really gave everything to Bhagavatam that he had, because in his mind, the Bhagavatam is what will sustain the Krishna consciousness for the next 10,000 years.
Normally, the local language translation of Bhagavatam, although it is coming from the original Sanskrit, but normally in a local people are translating it. And because it's easy to understand, so people normally follow that. So now we are part of this organization that Prabhupada has made everything. We still suggest to go for that, because sometimes people find this one as difficult to understand. Versus that's very simple language in their own language, much easier for them to understand. So, what would be your question?
So to some extent, Prabhu, it depends on what is it that the other is, because there are, just like Bhagavad Gita, there are many commentaries on the Bhagavatam. So if it is by Sripad Ramanujacharya, by Sridhar Swami, these are ones that are bona fide commentaries, right? And they are, of course, their commentaries themselves are in Sanskrit, so it's a little difficult to do that. But having deposited your faith in Prabhupada, it just is a natural extension to share the realizations. That's the nature of the guru-disciple relationship, right? Prabhupada would say that somebody asked him a similar question, that there are other commentaries also, and Prabhupada said there are other women also, but you have your own wife. Right? So and there may be other women who are more beautiful or whatever, but you have your own wife. So Prabhupada said, I'm your guru. So have fidelity to, and of course he was not being like petty, saying that you can't go out there. But the nature of the mind is that the more you spread yourself out, everybody has a slightly different mood. Right? The nature of the mind is that the more you spread yourself out, the more you will take a little bit of this, compare it with that, and the mind will say, take the lesser of the two, take the more. Somebody said that keeping Bhagavatam in your house is good enough. But Prabhupada says you have to read it. But that's an easier path, so I'll follow. For this I'll follow that. So the mind can be good. So it's better to take shelter of one and then follow. Anything else?
Not a question but an observation. The depth of whatever you delivered was amazing. You made it so sequential, so easy to understand, and showed so much of depth of knowledge and studies that you have done. It's amazing. It was so absorbing. Easy to understand the sequence of life. Led to this.
Thank you. Question?
One question about the two sons of Bhakti Devi that you were mentioning in the last time. So one was Jnana and the second one Vairagya. Vairagya means what? Separation?
Renunciation.
Renunciation.
Material renunciation. It's the opposite of material absorption. Vairagya.
You mentioned Bhakti Devi lamenting, and after that Narada Muni giving assurances, but after that I lost the connection. What is that Narada Muni is actually praying for? That's when four Kumaras come and sharing.
So Narada Muni had promised Bhakti Devi that he would not only rejuvenate her sons, but also re-establish her. And through the process of so he established the process of reading Bhagavatam, and with the help of his gurus, the four Kumaras, and that was a process that rejuvenated bhakti, rejuvenated jnana, rejuvenated vairagya. It also helped in the spread of bhakti all over the world. Okay, so we'll have Bhagavat Aarti for the Bhagavatam. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.